What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA channel. Today's video is again about this epic fight that took place on Saturday at UFC 319, DDP versus Khamzat Chimaev, where, as we now know, Khamzat won dominantly over 5 rounds, a 5-round decision, 50-44. Some people argue that it should have been a 50-42, 50-41, something like that. It was very dominant, where DDP spent around 15 minutes on bottom in the crucifix position, which is quite unheard of. But I didn't know how unheard of it was until I listened to On Paper with Anthony Smith. I also listened to some clips from Kamaru Usman and Henry Cejudo on the Pound for Pound podcast. And I thought it was interesting, the things that they were saying, because my initial take on the fight, in terms of the way it went, how dominant Khamzat was that Khamzat gets the bulk of the credit in terms of just being levels above everybody. And I still think he does. And I also thought Dricus deserves a lot of credit for not getting submitted, and he still does. Absolutely. But what these guys shed light on is not only who deserves credit where and why and what, but they talk about the differential, the skill differential in grappling and in wrestling and getting out from under, and etc. They talk about this essentially insurmountable skill differential that exists between DDP and Khamzat Chimaev, as illustrated by this fight, and basically draw the conclusion that it is highly, highly, highly improbable for DDP to ever cover that gap in terms of knowledge, in terms of muscle memory, to be competitive against Khamzat Chimaev. Now, of course, there's always a chance that he could clip him, right? We always have that opportunity in MMA, the puncher's chance, as they call it. And I would call it something better than a puncher's chance, of course, because he's a kickboxing champion. We've seen his strikes. They come from all over the place, from weird angles and different spots, and he throws them punches and bunches, all sorts of crazy stuff that have caught a lot of people in the past. That's how he got Izzy eventually down and submitted, but he caught him with an odd angle of a strike, took him down, eventually submitted him, choked him out. DDP really lit up Sean Strickland with all this crazy striking. So, of course, it's possible, but is it probable? And this video is kind of tackling that particular issue through these other fighters. Because, again, remember, yes, I have Muay Thai training. I've trained for about 6 years, but I don't really know wrestling, and I don't really know grappling. I mean, I know it from somewhat of a fan's perspective. I'm fascinated by it. I am very interested by it. But like Justin, for example, my co-host on the show, he's a wrestler. He wrestled all throughout high school and college. He does the wrestling class at Extreme Couture. He has a much better eye for this. Me, I'm still quite a novice. So I thought it'd be interesting to share the basic opinions of DDP's wrestling and grappling compared to Khamzat's through the lens of other professionals, starting with Anthony Smith, who I think he's just got a great mind for the sport. So we're going to start with a clip from Anthony Smith talking about the crucifix position, because I didn't understand exactly, I guess, how embarrassing I suppose it is to be even crucifixed at all in practice. Anthony Smith touches upon that in this clip, and this will give you an idea of exactly how wide the margin is between Khamzat and DDP in the grappling department.
Of the get-ups, he spent more time in a crucifix on Saturday night than I've spent in side control in my entire life. In my whole life. And that's not me bragging. That's saying that he's so far behind. Yeah. He doesn't have enough time left in his life alive on this earth to make up the gap that there was in the crucifixing someone at this level. And for you, those of you that are home or listening to me on your drive, being crucifixed, if I was to get crucifixed in practice, I would fucking leave practice. I'd be so angry and embarrassed, I would fucking leave. And I know in MMA it happens at times. You're taking a couple shots and guy jumps over. But if you're actually like legitimately stuck in it, I'm not saying if no one's ever stepped over my leg, over my arm, in some weird funky ass scramble, and I get stuck there for a second, and then you got to, work your way out of it. But like legitimately getting stuck there, that's like getting wrist locked. Like, it just can't happen. You can't let that happen. It happened like 5 times, almost. I think in every round it happened at least once. He wasn't framing. He wasn't digging underhooks from the bottom. He wasn't doing a lot of really basic things. And it would be easy for me to say, well, it's Khamzat. It's not. It's not. It's not Khamzat is so good that you can't get an underhook from the bottom. It's not Khamzat that you have no instincts to frame when he's down low or push on his head and know that you got to get 1 foot out at a time and stop trying to pull out 2.
So there it is. I was more on the side of it was Khamzat, and that Khamzat is just at that level, and that's why the differential was so big. I guess what he's saying is DDP is just missing a lot of fundamentals and basics when it comes to wrestling and grappling, which I don't have the eye for that. I wouldn't have been able to pick that up without listening to Anthony Smith. So he's saying the ground to cover is so vast, it's essentially impossible. I will say, devil's advocate, there is a possibility that maybe it looked like he was lacking those instincts solely because Khamzat's crucifix might be so dominant. And we saw Khamzat do something insane to Robert Whittaker that we'd never seen done before. It obviously doesn't mean that Robert Whittaker's wrestling, defense, grappling, etc. is terrible. It's not that. It's just Khamzat has another level. So maybe it is that. But again, this is Anthony Smith, professional fighter, been in the UFC. He's retired now, but been in the UFC for forever. I'm more inclined to believe what he's saying. So I just thought this was very interesting, especially when he states it like that. I know he's being slightly hyperbolic, but he's saying if he would ever get crucifixed in practice, he would get up and leave. Like, that's a big statement. I had no idea that getting crucifixed was such a big deal. I want to ask Justin about that on Friday. But anyways, that was the first clip. This is the second one. And he said, the co-host, I'm not sure who this guy is, but he's obviously, he knows his stuff when it comes to MMA, knows it very well. And he said, it seemed like when you watch DDP that no one had ever turned the corner on DDP. I'm going to show you guys what turning the corner is after this if you're unfamiliar with wrestling. I kind of broken it down with a video and also an explanation prior to that. But check out this clip and then we'll get into the explanation of what it means. It's basically one of the things that we see all the time in MMA. It's a very common thing. It's like, it seems kind of pretty basic to me. So the way they're framing it just seems like DDP has maybe close to an insurmountable task on his hands.
Like Chimaev, like, you know, chain wrestling, right? Like you shoot, turn the corner, body lock. Sometimes you chain together 2, 3, 4. Chimaev's chain wrestling got to 2. And then Dricus' life turned into a Rubik's Cube. Like he just had no clue what to do on Chimaev's second. Again, like no one had ever turned the corner on Dricus ever, it seemed, which really blew me away. And it's just, I guess just a credit to his like toughness, durability, strength, and like mind for fighting, that with just so many basic foundations of grappling he doesn't have, and still was an undefeated UFC champion.
So there you have it. I mean, he also is in agreement that he's missing a lot of fundamentals and basics. So, you know, it still raises that question of, was it something having to do with Khamzat's dominance, Khamzat being at another level? But I don't know. It does seem as though perhaps there's a deficiency. Now, when we come to turning a corner, let me explain exactly what this is. Turning the corner is basically you shot, right? You take a shot, you're grabbing a single leg, let's say, and then you position, you pivot around the side. So you're now, instead of pushing forward into the opponent, you're now pushing from the side. Now, obviously you can think, right? When you're hitting somebody from the front, you got your back foot back, you've got a little bit more balance in terms of stopping the takedown or maybe sprawling. But once you come to the side, that option for sprawling is limited. You could, even if you try and sprawl, you're probably not going to have the same balance and same control. So it's going to be easier to take somebody down. So I'm going to show you this with a quick video. This is essentially turning the corner. Check it out. So you see how he kind of comes around to the side to land that takedown? Oh, and then they reset, and then it shows it again. But essentially, that's what it is. Grab, boom, turn the corner, and then drop, drive from the side. Now here we got the last clip. We've already heard from Anthony Smith and his co-host on that podcast. But now here is Henry Cejudo and Kamaru Usman. They're actually debating, going back and forth. But listen to what Kamaru Usman has to say, in particular in regards to DDP and the skill gap that he needs to cross.
I don't think he had the right training partners for this camp, dude. I really don't, man. I think
stop that.
No,
stop.
he beat his ass.
Are you trying to tell me different training partners would have changed what we saw in there?
He would have been a little more.
Look at the positions that we saw. You were crucified 3 out of the 5 rounds.
You have to get top collegiate Division I wrestlers to really understand. You know who Khamzat Chimaev had in his training camp? Pat Downey, world team member, All-America. The dude knows wrestling. You came from folk style wrestling. If you're able to get out from bottom, dude, you're going to need specialists in that area. Not every coach knows everything.
Folk style, getting off bottom, having experience experience that. I agree with you on that aspect. But Henry, that takes years to develop. Being on
But
all
it's
fours,
a start. It's a start.
I do
Kamaru.
agree. I agree. It is a start, but with the level that Khamzat is on, I don't think would have made that big of a difference.
We could agree to disagree.
Definitely.
So there it is. It's just such a skill gap that maybe it seems almost like I don't know. Maybe it's just not going to be possible. Again, you always have the chance of maybe he clips him or something like that, but it does seem like quite a tall task. You know what I'd love to see next for DDP in terms of his next fight, whenever that may be. They may take some time off. They said they really want to work on their wrestling, but prior to rematching Khamzat, obviously, if that does happen, right? If he's able to get on another streak, maybe get 1 or 2 wins and then come back and get it. I bet you they're going to make him get 2 wins. It also seems like he doesn't have the best relationship with Dana White. I don't know how that plays into things, but if he's able to string together 2 solid wins and get back to Khamzat, what I'd like to see first, and I'm kind of bummed, the 2 people that I thought would be cool for DDP to go up against, they got matched up against each other. Fluffy Hernandez versus RDR. But I'd love to see him go against maybe Fluffy. Let's say Fluffy gets out and beats RDR. I'd like to see that fight. I'd like to see what DDP can do. And I want to see for real, is the wrestling that big of a gap? And we did see what happened with Derek Brunson, but he still won. He willed his way through that fight and still got the victory. So if we could see him against another wrestler, we could definitively answer this question. Is it simply just a general lack of basics and foundations and allow the grappling and wrestling? Or is it that, hey, maybe he can hold his own and do his thing and power his way through? With most wrestlers, it's just that Khamzat is at such a different level and has such control and is such a master of position that he's just not able to do it against Khamzat. Maybe a lot of people aren't able to do it against Khamzat, right? We saw the way Robert Whittaker looked against Khamzat. It could be that. I don't know. These guys are the experts, though, so I'm inclined to believe them more so. But again, is it that he looked bad because the competition was so great? I don't know. I don't know. But food for thought. There it is. Actually, once again, the main thing that stuck out to me why I want to make this video is the way that Anthony Smith put it just so emphatically. He does not have enough time left on this planet to bridge that gap. It's a pretty powerful statement. So anyways, there it is. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Also, let me know, who would you guys like to see DDP fight next? Do you think Fluffy Hernandez or RDR would be an interesting matchup? Not only just to see a great fight, RDR would be a great fight. I think Fluffy would be a great fight, but more to see, hey, how far can DDP get in terms of wrestling and grappling defense? Can he close the gap? Can he improve substantially and significantly? And then would that make sense at some point for some rematch against Khamzat? Anyways, that's all we got for you in this video. Let me know if you like what you saw. Click that like button if you did, and we will see you guys in the next video. Take it easy.